We're good.
Good. All right, we're call the meeting on June 5th to order of the Planning Commission. I want to welcome all our guests. Our first item on your agenda is approval of the minutes. Anybody have any objection with the minutes? Get a motion.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Jim, do you have anything?
I do not.
Bruce?
Thanks. No, sir.
Jeff? Jeff?
No, sir.
Moving on. Zoning appeals case.
Yeah, so this one, you heard about it last week, or last month. This is VR 840. Brian and Christina Weaver requesting a variance to allow the construction of an addition to connect a detached garage to their house. This proposed construction would place the single-family residence to within 34 foot of the front setback. I believe it was in compliance with accessory building setbacks, but once you make it an addition, it did not comply with the front 40-foot setbacks. They're asking for a variance. So at the last meeting, you all looked at this and did not make any comments. They had the hearing, but because they only had 3 members, they had to be in agreement, and I believe it was a 2-to-1 vote.
2-to-1.
So we realized after that point that if you only have 3 people, it has to be unanimous. So it's been continued to this month. So I don't know if anybody has any additional comments on that. There were no comments last time.
Anything, Bruce?
No, it was, just like Chad said, it was 2-to-1, and it has to be unanimous, we only have 3 members. It's 2-to-1 in favor.
Do we have any reason to take a vote or anything on this, or is that?
No, again, variances, you can offer an opinion if you want to. Special exceptions, you have to, but variance, you don't have to.
Anybody have an opinion on it? I don't remember, was there comments last time on it all, or just
No, I think you
Okay.
just said no formal comments, let the
Right.
board decide.
send it on down to the?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll do that again if everybody's in concurrence. All right, moving on to subdivision waiver request.
Yeah, we have a waiver request from ESD LLC. Aaron and John are here to discuss that. So we've got a proposed development off of Gravelly Run Road. And I can bring this up. And the access to it is too steep. So they want to create a 11-acre lot here. And in the Deep Creek watershed, I believe that lot will be up in this area somewhere. Gravelly runs down here. To do so, any lot in the Deep Creek watershed has to have road frontage. So this Sleepy Hollow Road, it's labeled that way in some old plats, but it's not a road as far as I consider it. It doesn't serve 3 or more lots. It doesn't provide the principal means of access. It's not a road that we had in any of our old road rosters or our current road roster. So it has no, specific grandfathered bearing or anything. So they propose to come up through here, through some other properties, and serve the lot here. Here's the road profile. Right here, you've got a 17.8% slope here. The minimum or the maximum slope in the subdivision ordinance is 12%. You can go up to 14% if you pave it or tar and chip, but that's to a maximum of 10 lots. So you've got a 13% slope here, and farther on up, you get 12.8, and then 14% at this point. The steepest part, I believe, would be in between these in this area. That's where you've got the 17.8% slope.
So the purpose of the road is just to get to one lot?
For right now, but it's my understanding that there will be potential future development there. And I don't know how many lots we're talking about. The overall parcel is 245 acres, so there could potentially be a lot of development.
Can you explain this to me, what the reason?
Yeah, can we just approach?
What's that?
Do you want me to come up there?
Yeah, I'd make it easier.
Supplemental stuff. Okay, so we'll get you an aerial tax map first to kind of help outline. There's actually multiple properties that are going to be impacted by this.
What's your name?
Aaron Keats.
Aaron's the engineer on the project.
Sorry, I didn't hear too, Jared. I thought it
Okay, so if you look, this is the subject property, that's the 245 acres. This is the road leading up to it. Okay, so it comes off Allen Circle down here at the bottom, comes through multiple lots down here, then it comes up through this Terry German property, comes up through our property. Actually, this is the way that they built the water tower up at the top of Ridgeview. Okay, then there's a right-of-way that runs back across the top to the German property that basically wouldn't have access to the top of their property because of the slopes involved. So this is the road coming up. This is a plat from '84 that shows the 50-foot right-of-way on this and the 50-foot right-of-way coming back up to the top of the German property. So, you know, Chad made a good point that it isn't on the official roads roster, but this is a recorded plat from 1984 that shows it. There was an agreement done in 2009 where the county actually said, hey, we need to use, they have an agreement that basically says, we need to use this existing 50-foot right-of-way in the existing road to get access to the top of Ridgeview to build the water tank. So they used this road, it was suitable for heavy equipment and tractor trailers to get a water tank constructed. And there was an existing right-of-way from 1984. And I understand this is a complicated issue, and it's not just a simple, we want this. This map is a bunch of 30% slopes delineated. So the pink is a 30% slopes. This is Gravelly Run, this is Sleepy Hollow. So if you're trying to get from Gravelly Run at the bottom to Sleepy Hollow here, you're dealing with a bunch of 30% slopes. So we can't realistically use the existing Gravelly Run road access to do any development on the property. So the only way we can actually get to the property is through Sleepy Hollow Road. But we're restricted because the portion of the road that doesn't meet the slopes is actually on the adjoiners' properties where we just have an easement. We're kind of limited by what slopes, how much we can actually modify it to get within the slope restrictions. So that's really, our primary, if we had more room to do the work, we could go down there and possibly regrade this to get this to a more agreeable slope that would meet the requirements. We're restricted to the 50-foot easement, and we're trying to use the existing road, which I know it's not officially a road, but there is a road there. Now, I will say that if you try and drive up this road right now, it's pretty rough because the drainage system has been plugged, so there's some washouts on it. That's why, if anybody has been up this road, once you get up onto the subject property, the road grade is, under 12, it's around 12% until you get up to the very top. So we're trying to figure out how to get access for not just this property and the 11 acres that we're talking about doing. This is the 11 acres that Chad was referencing.
The 11 is part of the 200?
Yeah, the 11 is this part of the 200. It's right here, as soon as you come onto the property below this 30% slope. So it would be right in this area. So as soon as you come onto the property, there's the 11 acres that includes part of that 30% slope. So this bit of the proposed work is 11 acres, but we can't do 11 acres because we need road frontage, but it's not considered a road, and we can't get access without going over the without going over the 12 and 14%. Also, we wanted to do a lot line adjustment for this portion of the property to add to Steve Green's piece down here, but we can't take that property away because that's technically the road frontage. So even though you can't access from Gravelly Run up to Sleepy Hollow through there because of the 30% slopes, it's also technically the road frontage, so we can't do that lot line adjustment either. So we're trying to figure out a way for us to have road frontage on this property and actually have access for this property, the German property, and even this German property down here can't create any lots because it would have to be qualified as a road at that point. So that's the situation.
Second, who maintains the road now?
Right now, nobody's really maintaining the road.
Right.
It was being it was fixed up and then repaired by the county when they did the water tank, and then it's basically been
But it's
sitting
sitting there
idle.
ever since.
Yeah, it's sitting idle, and
That's
that's
what
why.
I thought, but I wanted
Yeah.
to clarify it.
And as far as getting the road maintenance agreement, so ESDC will be could maintain the road, and then the owners of the German property down there, I'm sure getting a road maintenance agreement would not be a difficult issue.
Where do you stand on this, Chad?
Well, the maximum slope in the subdivision ordinance is 12%. You know, that's a safety issue. The maximum for driveways is 15%. You're allowed to go a little steeper, but this exceeds all those. You know, it's emergency access, I think, would be the biggest concern. Can you get fire personnel? Can you get rescue personnel up there? I think Overlook Pass is probably around 14% slope for reference. So this would be a very steep section of road.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it's down there in the restricted right-of-way section. So I don't know if we can get, you know, we can go to 14 with the limit on the number of units. So instead of making it open-ended, you know, is this something that we could even say, okay, this, at this road grade, we only get to a certain number of units on, with a cap? Or, you know, you can see how basically how much property, you're talking almost 300 acres of property that can't be developed because of this road access issue.
That steep area, that's about 500 feet, is that what it is? Is that
I
what
think
I'm
it's,
saying?
I think it's only like, what did I say it was? 200 to 450, so it's like 250 feet,
Okay.
just down there at the bottom.
If you don't mind, that steep area you're talking about, it already exists.
Right.
So that road's actually in good condition. The property I bought is one where the culverts are washed out and need to fix it up. But getting to that steep area already exists. It's already pretty well maintained. And there's driveways to other houses all over it already. So that does exist.
And you're proposing to bring it all up to county standards?
Well, that's the problem. We can't bring it all to county standards because the county standards say 12%.
Well, without the percent, without the
Yeah,
slope.
yeah.
Everything's
Yeah,
gonna
we'll
be
bring it up to
paved
the,
or
yeah, the
ditched
necessary
and
road width
culverted
and
and
hardship of pavement. to
meet
go.
all the county standards.
Right.
And you're saying you get everything
Except
with
the
14%, is that what your goal is?
Well, no, I don't think we can get to 14%, which is why we're requesting the waiver. If we could get to 14%, then we just have a limit on the number of units.
Right.
So, you know,
Well, what do you think you're gonna have as far as, when you're finished with the road?
I mean, the biggest issue for us is where it is going up around the hill, you're not gonna be able to change the slope right there very much. If it was on a longer stretch where you could drop the top and, you know what I mean?
Oh, no, I agree with you, I'm
Yeah.
just that, 'cause I know where your trouble
think
spot is. I
You're
know
gonna
that.
have a hard time getting much below 17. You might get down to 16 if we go ahead and do the grading out to, you know, the limits of the 50-foot right of way. And it may be that we could talk to German, who is basically the property owner that is relying upon this for access to two properties. Maybe we can get a reverse grading easement or something, but right now, we haven't gotten one of those, so we have to kind of operate within the parameters of what we have legal rights to do.
How long is this road overall?
I think if you look at the end of the profile, it's like 4,700 feet. To get up to the top of the hill where the water tower is, I mean, the water tank, it's like 46 or 47.
And that's all you're trying to do for now.
Well, we're not even trying to go that far for now. We're only trying to get to the end of the 11-acre subdivision because you have to have 150 feet of road frontage in order for it to qualify as a lot.
Mhm.
Now, let's face it, while we're doing it, we'd like to go ahead and say, let's get to the top of the hill. I can't speak to what all John's gonna do with the property. He's not interested in doing a massive development up there just because of the cost and the road issues. You know, it's just not practical. But the actual road itself is a well-graded bench that's much wider than we need. And once you get on the property, it's not a problem. It's just down here in this area from 250 to, what did I say, it was 200 to 450?
So of the 4,700 feet of road, how much of it is above the grade requirement? It's too steep.
If you were to say above the 14%, well,
No, 14's okay if you pay
You
it,
mean
right?
below?
yeah. So it's this. This is the 17.8 that's going from about 200 up to about 450, where it's running through these properties down there at the bottom. Once you get above that, you got a stretch up here that's 13.3 that's going through German, and then you hit the property line, and then this is all the subject property. And there's another section up here that's 12.8, and up at the top it's like 14.2, but we can make the 14 get down below the 14, which is still within tolerance for
Up
10
to
units?
10 lots. So
10
it
lots.
says 12% is the maximum slope, and then if you have 10 or fewer lots and you're willing to pave or tar and chip, you can go up to 14.
Right,
That's
so
the
the only
maximum.
section that's really the problem is the 250 feet at the bottom,
Understood.
the rest of it's.
Just 250 feet of the 4,700 feet is all your question.
Right.
How many lots are we talking about in this, do we have?
Well, the first one we're talking about is the one 11 acre lot. I don't know, I mean, if we need to say that we're limiting it to 10 to meet the 14, and then anything that'll be, you know, if we try and do anything further than that, we'll have to get revertible grading easements with German and get below a certain slope before you could do any more than that. I mean, I don't wanna speak for John, but I think he'd probably be amenable to a restriction on that, so we're not turning it into an overlook pass where you suddenly have a massive development with a bunch of lots now needing access.
Right.
And then the other parcel is just, Stephen Kelly and Green's house is there, and they wanted to add a 6 acre buffer around it.
Yeah, and that won't be accessed via this, it'll just be accessed off of Gravelly Run.
Through their properties and the.
Yeah, basically, it would be this piece that would be getting added to Steve's piece. So the road frontage for Gravelly Run would go away, but you can't use it to get from here because of the 30% slopes.
Yeah, this section is what actually makes that conforming, because it has frontage on Gravelly Run right now.
Yeah, that's the only reason this qualifies as a lot with road frontage in the back.
Aaron, do you know if this would meet curve requirements? So road curves?
Well, first of all, it depends upon what your posted speed would be there. I'm gonna say that the radius, you know, if I'm looking at this, and I say that this is 100 foot, you know, your radius on this is probably getting close to 100 foot in that curve. So if you were to say it's, I think a 15 miles per hour, you can go down to a 70 foot radius. So it would meet for 15, which as you're approaching that intersection wouldn't be hard to post.
Yeah, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. That's just the other part to this, that if the slope is one part of it, it would still have to have a road plan to look at curves, things like that. And I had some questions about the part of it that goes through all these other properties, so I think I'd ask for some clarification about the legalities of that
the
as well.
easements and everything.
So those would be part of my other comments.
Yeah, they've actually got cross easements with Falcone, who's the predecessor in title to German, in order to, the plat that I showed you from 84, in order for these people to have access through here, they basically got easements back through here. So they basically did you let us through at the bottom and we'll let you through us to get up to the top. Because you can see that this is the only strip that this piece has to access this little section of road, and this is like 30% here. So you can't do anything to develop this parcel except for go up Sleepy Hollow and back around across the top on that 11/17 plan.
So the county maintains a 50-foot easement, right? That's the way I understand it.
Well, the county.
I mean, doesn't maintain it, but they have
They referenced it in that document, and then they fixed it up, and then they basically just walked away from it once they got.
They can't convey it back then?
It's
They
only
convey
good,
back to the
it's
owner?
only good for 180 days, right?
Right.
Okay.
Now, I'm not sure how the county is accessing their water tank now, because I don't think there's actually a road through Ridgeview, and that thing expired after 180 days, so I don't know if there's some other arrangement they have to get up to that water tank, but there's a water tank on top of Ridgeview the county has, and that's how they constructed it, and I'm not sure how they continue to access it.
I can drive my truck to this little route.
Yeah, I took my truck up Friday, but I wouldn't recommend it for anybody who likes their truck. Now, I will say that once, and that's just because the plug culvert's in there washed out. I mean, it's like creek section going through parts of the road. You know, it wouldn't be hard to go back in there, grade that in, open the culverts back up, and like I said, I would say this was the road that they used to log the whole thing, so it's one of those things where it's not a little logging road that was built 80 years ago. It's one of these wider logging roads, so if you look at the contours in the plan, you're talking about a bench that's probably almost 25 feet wide with a plugged up ditch on the uphill side. So yeah, it's actually in really good shape within the property boundaries, and as you approach it, it's just this questionable section at the bottom.
The only thing I see is how does it, if it runs through somebody else's property, how's that written in there? Is it a right of way at that point?
Well, that's what I'm saying. So if you pop that back up, Chad. So Falcone is the predecessor in title to German.
I understand, right,
So they owned all of this.
right.
So they granted an easement to, I think it was probably Howard Payne owned it at the time.
What it looked like on the.
Yeah, so they granted, Falcone gave Payne an easement and Payne gave Falcone an easement so they could, you know, construct this road or upgrade the road. I'm not sure what the condition of the road was whenever they came to the agreement back in '81. But this was all owned by German, well, Falcone and then German. So, I'm not
I
sure.
guess the question is there an existing easement there now, or is it owned by German? Is that road now owned by German, or is it?
Yeah, German owns
Is there
the
an
fee
easement?
here, and then German owns the fee here, and Falcone Trust owns the little section here, which is the people that originally conveyed it to.
Right.
And then A is Terry German, and B is Joy Vernon, who bought that property, you know, prior predecessor.
I guess the answer, the question would be that there is no right of way through those properties. It is owned by, the property owners actually own the road itself.
Yeah, the property owners own the fee,
Okay.
and then there's an easement over for the road.
Yeah, so I have an easement across that road.
Oh, there is, that's what I was.
Yeah, there's an
getting at.
easement for it, but they still own the fee.
There's a deeded 50-foot easement along that.
All the way up, okay, that's what I'm trying to get clarified.
Once it gets to my property, there's no easement because I own it, but getting to it is a 50-foot easement.
Well,
Now,
German
they
has-
also have an easement over mine to use the road too.
Yeah.
So there's easement the whole way up.
So in order to make the modification at the really steep part there, you'd have to go to the owners individually and say,
Right.
we're gonna do this and this and this.
Yeah, we'd have to get probably a revertible grading easement in order to make those changes. And like I said, it's in this 2 to 450, Station 2 to Station 450 area. This person's already using this as their driveway. But right in this area, after you get to that driveway is where the worst washout occurs. So if you were to try and drive up there, you could get up over the steep part, and then once you get past that driveway, that's where you run into the really rough up and through here.
So for D, that's how they get in?
Yes. Yeah, their house sits up in this corner and their driveway's here, so they're,
So
and-
from the gravity running to D,
right.
it's a decent road. Is that paved from there to there?
No, it's basically just gravel.
Well, it's tar and chip.
Yeah, you know how some old tar and chip deteriorates, yes, be more like a gravel road.
That's a good way to do it.
Okay.
And the road is in front of the houses, the surface of the houses are there now, not the road going up Sweet Sleepy Hollow, but the other road that comes off there and goes up past their house.
Yeah, the Allen Circle comes off of Gravely Run
Right.
and serves the lots.
There's no access to get across there to your lots, no way. I'm just looking at that when I saw that. I mean, I've been up in there, I know how deep it is.
If you go up Allen Circle, there's a driveway that connects back up to
I saw
Sleepy
that.
Hollow, you know, above the steep section, but that's all going through, you know, somebody
Right.
else's lot. It's not really suitable to try and get it.
I'm just looking at
That
options,
geometry-
that's why I asked that
Yeah,
question.
that geometry wouldn't work.
Right.
Aaron, does this map here shows a road, county road.
Okay,
Nowhere are you seeing that, you haven't talked about that.
okay.
Is that still there?
Well, here's the issue. So Payne had this property and this property, but there's a little triangular piece right here that you can see on, he's talking about, if you look on this, Morgan has shown, it says Old County Road going across this property, down here. But it runs through this Bowser property. So there's no easement through the Bowser property to get to this property. So he had shown one.
Is the county road going now?
Well, I think he just called it a county road, but it's never, I can't find on any information calling it a county road. I think it was just referred to as a county road.
Okay.
And if you could go in on the GIS and kind of zoom in, you can still see the road, but it runs through other people's properties beyond the limits of the public easement.
There's the
Trust me,
area.
that would be the much better way to come in there.
Okay, so that's out.
Right.
I was just wanted to ask that, okay.
Here's a current aerial.
Yeah, so if you want to zoom out a little bit, what you guys are on that flat, keep going. Keep going. See this little triangular, this road used to come in, come up here, and you can actually see that old road bed that came out through there, but it goes through all these other properties after the termination of Limousine Ridge Road as a private road. I mean, as a public road. So we can't get access through Bowser to the road, whereas we do have access there, but then we have to deal with the steep slope at the bottom.
Any other questions?
The biggest thing,
Darn.
to make sure I understand it right, we're asking for that variance basically on that 250-ish foot. So
Right, yeah, we're not trying to get a variance so we can build the whole road at a steeper slope. It's just that from 200 to 450 down the bottom.
You think you're gonna be able to work to get that road adjusted at some point or not?
Well, if German would be agreeable to it, which it would be.
Well, I know you
mutual.
gotta get the first.
Yeah, we have to get that. Like, right now, we're trying to operate within the limits of our right of way, which we can't really do that much grade adjustment because that's basically right where it's going up the hill and then turns and runs out across it.
Yeah. Anybody have any opinion?
How steep is 17%, is that?
Yeah.
I mean, is that, how bad is that?
You know where I live, back Big Ridge, I'm sure I have 17% back there, you think?
I'm not sure what that would be.
I wonder what Alder is.
Oh, what is?
No, I wonder what Alder Street is here.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
That would be a good reference, but I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I think Overlook Pass is 14 maybe.
You don't
So
notice.
Overlook is what?
14,
How
And
much?
that's the long straight.
14%.
Okay.
Yeah, if I had a good reference to give you, I would give you one.
The courthouse street here is much steeper than that. Coming up the side, you know, from
Yeah.
Alder extended, yeah.
Yeah.
Is that what you were talking about?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure what it is, but, like I said, even if it's something where we said, okay, we could only do 10 units and, reduce the grade as much as possible, and then any future development up there that would go beyond 10 units, we'd have to get a revertible grading easement. I mean, we're just trying to come up with a solution here because we're tying up 300 acres of development, 245 of John's, and then German's large tract, and even a small tract. So we're just trying to figure out how the best way to proceed is with this.
Is it unreasonable to grant what he just asked?
Well, I think the big, I don't think anybody wants to slow development down. I think the real question is it safe? Is it too steep for access for emergency personnel? I think that's the bottom line. Are we creating a situation where fire trucks and rescue personnel aren't gonna be able to get up there if there's development?
It's like I remember, I keep thinking about the one there behind the fairground where it's Malley up on top where, clear up on top, Wayne Swagger had a house and then, Deb Rankin and her family had a house there. I remember how steep that was. That was still pretty steep. I don't know what percentage that would be. Just of course, we leveled off a bunch of it, you know what I mean? But then going up in there was probably close to a little, maybe more than 17. I don't know, it was steep. And I agree with you. I've been in the fire truck on one of the steep, going up into one of those one time. It gives you an eerie feeling sometimes, but also, I think trying to work out a solution here is that somewhere down the road, we're gonna have to fix that road up at some point. Whether German agrees to it with it or not, you know what I mean? I mean, that, if he's gonna develop any more property back in there, or even build a house back in there, it's gotta be straight. That's the part that's bad. The rest of it, I think, can be graded. It's just that where that comes across everybody else's property. It could be
Right.
graded too if you had access to the property.
Yeah. Yeah, but if the steep part was on our property,
Right.
we'd regrade it and not have a problem.
And it's already being used by those properties.
What's that?
It's already being used by those properties right now. I wonder how steep the mountain road is.
And actually, this road, we talk about whether, if it has 3 or more on it, it's already a road. Well, this is actually the primary access for German's property on top of the hill. It's the primary access for the 245 acres for ESDC, German's small lot down the hill. And I'm still not sure how the county's getting access to the water tank.
I should know that, because I was back in here one time, and I'll be damned if I know, I can't remember where it was, for some reason, but, I mean, that's the other thing, have you talked to the county about that, the road at all? Have you talked to anybody in the county?
The county's like, we used to build the water tank, we don't have an easement on it.
Okay.
I didn't realize that easement expired after 180 days until you guys just said it, but, if the county needs an easement up there, I'm more than happy to give the county an easement.
I mean, it would be beneficial for the county to be able to access their water tank and.
Yeah.
Right, I agree, 'cause
At some point, you guys need to do something.
I keep looking at it, that one, took a place called Sweet Rewards Farm, you go up, and I backed into Ridgeview Valley.
Yeah,
I only got a road off of there now, I don't know, I haven't been clear back in there for a while, I know they had a road up to that one lot at one time, but I just don't know if that's the access now or not up now.
I don't think there's anything.
I don't think there is, there wasn't before,
Yeah.
I'm just saying, that's the only way I get up there, how you get up there.
Yeah,
Let's go through Ridgeview Valley.
obviously, the long-term plan was for Ridgeview Valley to get developed, and then
Right,
the road would go right up to the water tank, but Ridgeview Valley had the action on it for a while, so they ended up going through this property to build the water tank, but then that easement expired. So I don't know that they have access to their water tank
I don't
on
know.
top of the hill.
But that's why I asked you about the county,
Yeah.
just talk to them. Okay, we need a motion to approve the variance, right? Or not the variance,
Waiver.
the waiver. I have a motion,
You're gonna put it on a 10 lot?
what's that?
You're gonna put it for 10 lots?
That could be part of the motion, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, is that what that make any more palatable to do the 10 lot minimum?
Well, that's up to you guys if you want to. I mean, I think, again, I just think it's a safety issue. It's a question of whether that's creating an unsafe situation or not, or whether you think it's permissible.
Any other opinions before we go any further?
Can I just make two quick comments?
Yeah,
So,
sure.
the width of the road, that's not an issue, we've got 50 foot from the beginning to,
Yeah, there's a 50-foot right.
so that part, that covers.
Well, part of this there's a sliding scale depending on how many lots. If you're just doing one right now, it'd be 12 foot wide, 6 inches of stone. If you do 6 to 19 lots, then you're up to 16 foot wide, 1 foot shoulders. If you do 20 or more, you're 18 foot. So that way depends on what they're developing. That road width can increase depending
Yeah,
on
but
how many
there's a
lots
50-foot
are.
right of way for the whole thing.
Okay.
Yeah, and that would be
So
sufficient.
that's
50 foot's
sufficient.
fine. Yeah.
Okay, and the next question is, so if it's over 14, or at 14%, you're saying it needs to be paved with asphalt or tar. Is that the whole road or just the slope part?
Let me see how that reads.
Just kind of goes in the,
I kinda understood it that you would probably only build the road for what was needed, right? Not
Right.
all the way to the end off the bat, just,
Yeah, I'm thinking, what I was envisioning was, we do the pavement or tar and chip to go from Allen Circle with the bottom up past the steep slope issue. Once we get it past the steep slope, then it can revert back to regular road standards.
So the subdivision ordinance says a maximum of slope of 12% shall apply to any private road, except a maximum slope of 14% shall be permitted for a road that will eventually serve a total maximum of only 10 dwelling units, provided that all segments of such road with a slope greater than 12% are paved with asphalt or triple coat tar and chip. So they're talking about just the segments of the road that would exceed the 12%. That's the typical 12 to 14.
so the special exception is because we're going over the 14%.
You would basically be
If everything
going,
was 14% and you paved it, there would be no special exception.
yeah, if it were just 14, I would be able to permit it under this section. I would say as long as you
That's just my
char and chip that.
Before we make a motion.
And you have to, the other thing is any road that's over 10%, you have to provide as-built and everything. So if you complied with all that, it would comply with the ordinance. There wouldn't be an issue. But there's no allowance for anything greater than 14%.
And this is gonna go to Deep Creek zoning, they're gonna look at that, right?
Well, it doesn't go to the zoning board.
No,
It,
it's a waiver.
yeah, the road standards are just in the subdivision ordinance. So
Oh, so
if you approve this, then it has to go through the subdivision process, and I would look at it to make sure it meets all that.
All right.
I've got one more clarification to ask for.
Mm-hmm.
I assume that this steepness is not based on average steepness, right? I mean, if there's an area of 17%, that's considered 17%, it's not rounded with, you don't take 14%, 14%. Is it an average of all the road, the whole length of the road, or is it just certain areas?
Which each segment, I don't know if you guys shot that.
Are you
or-
talking about what the?
Well, you got an area of 17%, whatever.
Yeah, that 17%, if you look at that profile, there's a short section from station 2 to 4 plus 50.
Right.
That I drew that magenta line in there, and then I said, what's the slope of that line it's approximating, and it was the 17%,
Right.
17.1.
What I guess I'm asking is, I'm looking at our code versus.
Right.
A lot of times on roof height, you go average, of all the roofs that are on the house to get the height. We're not doing that on the road percentage.
No, we would look at it, there's a section of road that exceeds 12%, that section, you don't,
I just want to clarify.
yeah, you don't average the whole thing out and say part of it's 20,
Right,
part of it's
Can you
5.
read that one more time?
So it says a maximum slope of 12% shall apply to any private road, except a maximum slope of 14% shall be permitted for a road that will eventually serve a total maximum of only 10 dwelling units, provided that all segments of such road with a slope greater than 12% are paved with asphalt or triple coat tar and chip. So that's what's permitted. The only other place that slope is really referenced is in the driveway section. It says driveway slopes of driveways shall be minimized so as to accommodate access by emergency vehicles. As provided in Division E below, generally driveway slopes should not exceed 15% for any horizontal distance greater than 25. And then the emergency access part says the subdivision administrator may require an applicant to provide a statement on a subdivision plan regarding whether or not it will be possible to construct driveways suitable for emergency access. So it goes in there a little bit more on driveways, talking about making sure that the turning radius and everything for fire trucks and ambulances. So that's in the driveway section, but I think that general idea is what we're looking at slopes for. Make sure people can get to their lot, but also if emergency access has to get there, it's safe.
So what if you made a conditional agreement that if you were able to go to, German and say, I have a conditional agreement for if we can get your property and re-slope the road? That's what you're talking about. I mean, that's the goal, right? So
Yeah, the goal is basically, what we're talking about right now is if we put a condition on that says we could do a certain road slope up to 10 units, anything that requires future development beyond 10 units, we need to go to German, get a revertible grading easement, and get that road down to the 14%.
So you don't want, that wouldn't be an advantage to them now, say, hey, I've got
It would be an advantage to German, but
right
now we don't have an agreement in place with them that gives us a revertible grading easement.
But if you have a conditional agreement from us, would that give them, I mean,
I don't
I'm
know
sitting here.
German.
Okay, all right.
We're not always dealing with the most, rational about, benefits for people.
But you have not started negotiation with German yet? Okay.
Yeah, I haven't been part of it, no.
I just saw you shaking your head, that's why I asked that question, right? Okay, where are we staying? We have a motion of, we grant the waiver with the conditions as you discussed with, 10 lots or minimum, somebody said about the 10 lots, or, I guess you could table it until you see what you can work out with the other roads, with the other guy there, you know what I mean? I guess that's an option.
Are we sure that's the intent of the ordinance? It doesn't say that any part is over 17, it just says that, that no grade over 17. Does that mean you could add, I thought I saw where you were going a minute ago with averaging.
Right, that's what I was trying to, right, and that way Chad read it back to me, that 17, whatever percent is the kicker, I mean, I think it's really an easy grant because you can get the rest of it down to whatever, 12, 14%.
That's what
It's a piece on that turn that is, 17%. That's why I asked the average grade, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess my question is, I don't know what the answer is. What does the fire safety people consider a safe slope?
So it was 15%.
12%.
Right,
I mean, that's what's in the ordinance, so,
Right.
or 14 if it's paved for more lots.
I mean, you kind of between a rock and a hard place because you don't own the property that's affected in a sense. It is affecting you, but it's not affecting. You can't fix what is affecting you. I guess that's a fair way to say that until you get that. I mean, I guess what I'm hearing from most of the members is there's apprehension about it because of the steep slope there at the 17%. And I want you to understand that's the way I see it. That I would sooner have you guys come back after you've made contact with him and say, can we work this out? Because I mean, the 17%, I don't feel like that. I do feel like it's a safety issue. I mean, I see you nodding your head. I think you agree the same way. I mean, you want if you build that house up there, whatever you do, you want people to be safe.
Right.
And that's the only thing I see, the rest of it, I think, can be, being on that road myself and being up, I mean, I know what it's like to go up and down. I know you can fix it, but it's just, you gotta get access to fix it. I mean, I know it's probably not the answer you wanna hear, but I feel like that's probably the fairest way to go on. And I'm speaking for the commission, they may be different, I may get a motion to change that, but I think that's, I know personally, I would feel more comfortable knowing that we tried to correct the problem at the bottom. I mean, I hope that doesn't sound like I'm, speaking out of turn for that, but I don't see any way to grant. If the maximum you can go is 14% anyway, if we grant you, with paving or whatever and stuff, we're 3% over that. That to me seems like that's a substantial amount when you're going, you know what I'm saying? I mean,
Yeah.
that's the way I look at it. Do I get any agreement on that, or what do you think, Jeff? You think there's a wiggle room on it or not?
I mean, I'd try to approach those people with the idea of saying, hey, you can open up some options for your property, and if we can do this, and if not, we might have to take a look at it next time again and just see how it works out. I don't know why they wouldn't, if you're gonna incur the cost, I don't know why they wouldn't let you do it.
The only reason why we don't know them, I mean,
Right.
sometimes people are rational, sometimes not.
Jim, do you have anything?
What if the building lots were limited to something less than 10, 4 or 5 in the intro? Say,
That's a question for, I think it's pretty well self-explanatory. I don't think there's any.
Well, again, to say,
Whether you got 5 or 10, it's still gonna be.
and in this whole waiver process, I'm telling you guys what's in the ordinance. They're asking for a waiver from my
Right.
decision, so I'm just telling you, guys, what's in there. It's maximum 12, and again, I think is that safe or not? Can you get through it? So in one sense, the total number of lots don't matter that much if if you think if you think that's safe, then it shouldn't really matter. If you think it's unsafe, then it doesn't really matter if it's one lot or 10.
That's the whole kicker right there. It's 17% safe for
But
EMS.
it encourages them and gives them time to go pursue the other properties to get a lesser grade
Right.
on the road.
Well, the steepest part, 17.8%, isn't that already servicing A, B, C, and D?
Yeah.
Right? They're already in and out of there. Yeah. Is it paved? Is that portion paved?
Well, that's the deteriorated
Tar and chip.
part we're talking about, that's more.
Oh, okay, you did mention that, we already talked about that. But it's being used now on a daily basis for those?
I'm
I
not
mean,
sure
don't
if
they
they're
live there?
full-time residents, but they're regular, I'll say regular use, I don't know about daily.
And if it matters any, Tony, not that it's part of the rules, but Aaron could tell you, he knows it's 4,800 feet long and he knows the elevation change. He can tell you what the average slope for that road is from
Right.
bottom to top, but that's
Well, I
not
mean,
what our reg says.
Yeah, you could bring up the profile and look at the section just that's within the other owner's right of way. And that section, it basically is steep and then flattens out, like, it's pretty flat once you get up past the steep section. My problem is you can't just do that average grade, because you can't grade it.
Right,
So,
yeah, right.
Yeah, if you were talking average.
And that's why I have to have clarification, sometimes it
But
works
if
out.
it helps you in your mind.
Right. Oh, yeah, right.
I mean, and it's one of those things where you say, well, like, it would be easy from a practical sense to say, we could tolerate a short section of steeper road. Well, how far could you stretch that section out before it becomes a safety issue? I mean.
I actually think, and this is gonna sound, it's just, again, I'm voicing, I don't wanna tell a big thing, but I feel like if that 17% was up, instead of when you're first coming off the road like that, that's my concern right there. And I think that's what's got the whole thing stuck right now, in my opinion.
Right, is the location of the steep slope is down to bottom.
Right,
But again, that's also where people are already.
Right, that's where people already fall, right, so the rules have already, I understand that,
I'm falling the same way. I'm not a no, but I'm not a definite yes. I have some hesitation because I just can't picture it.
John, go.
My argument, I guess, about it is, that it is only that 250-some foot stretch, it's already being used. You know, I mean, it already has houses accessed it. Is it possible to get you guys out there to lay a set of eyeballs on it? Because the thing is, when Aaron first told me this, not that I didn't believe it, but I didn't believe it. It doesn't look and feel as steep. Like, it is, Aaron engineered it and stuff, But when you actually drive up to it, it doesn't look and feel like it. It's just, like the other communities you mentioned are definitely steeper than this 250-foot section. At least the eyeballs on it just doesn't.
Yeah, I'd like to see
I understand.
it.
Yeah.
Like to see it.
That's what I said,
That's
no,
kind of-
I've
that's
driven
my
that, I know that
hesitation.
road, I've been
I'd
up
like
that
to see
road,
it.
I know.
That's what I'm saying, like, if the road was smooth, like, whenever you go up around there, it's rough. And that's what I told Chad, like, if you guys would want to even get a tour of the road, we could get vehicles or side-by-sides or something, so you could see the whole stretch and see what the whole stretch is, even though the real concern is the bottom stretch.
You guys are all willing.
I'm open for any suggestion. I mean, my opinion would be to, if I'm trying to advise anybody, would be to approach Dermot, you know, we can work out a deal and then come back. And I think that's the way a lot of people are looking right now. I think that 17% stuck in your head because it's right there. I'm not saying I know, I'm like you go up that, you're like, it's steep, but you don't notice it because it's steep, right? And to make that say a 17% or 14%, I wouldn't know the difference. But your map shows 17%, which, you know, I just don't know how to make that work. If it, like I said, if it was up, if it was up on your property or what you have, and the hump was there, you take the hump off. You know, I mean, that's the whole problem, I mean, not having the property, and that's the way I see it. Ain't that the way everybody else feels about it? Yeah, you mean, I'm seeing shaking.
I'd like to see it.
You'd like to see the property? Is that okay? Did you do that?
Get me over the hump, maybe.
I think any of you can individually visit if you want. If we do something as a group, I think we have to be careful with the Open Meetings Act, kind of like with the Board of Appeals. When they all go out, we actually put that as part of the advertisement. So if we're all meeting as a board there, we may have to be careful and just say that that is
On your way home tonight.
But yeah, you're all willing. I mean, you all can all
You.
drive by and take a look anytime you
I'm
want.
gonna look at it on my way in.
Bruce, any other intake before I?
Just one comment I'll make on that average slope. I mean, just eyeballing it, it rises 500 feet over 5,000 feet. That's 10% grade average from bottom to top. But there's just these steep areas in between.
steep section.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I don't think that's the way our.
No.
Oh, yeah, no.
And
But you
I
were
didn't want to
kinda-
ask that question because I just wanted to make sure I was clear because I know there's sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's referring to any segment of road that's over 12 is what is written there. So I think that's what it's looking at.
And we can make a motion and we want to wait and bring it back. I don't want to delay you guys, bring it back next month or whatever and, you know, we look at it and see if you can make any progress on it. I don't know. That's the only way I see it's gonna. I mean, do I have a motion for anybody to approve? I guess that means I don't say it's tabled, but I guess we're just not, I don't wanna say deny, we have to motion to deny it or not.
Well, you can either deny or approve, or if you have some other suggestion that you want to make a motion that they
Provide additional information.
do something else, then
Yeah,
you can
or
do
just let
that
it go
too.
with you guys, if you work with German to get it worked out, then come back and we'll deal with it, I mean, you know. I don't think it's a matter of how these guys, everybody in this board feels about the slope, I mean, I think but if it just wouldn't be for that one kicker, I think it could be worked out, and once you understand that, we can try every way we could to do that, but it's just, at this point, I think it's kinda difficult to do, am I correct in, you know, saying that? I mean, you guys feel comfortable with that?
I'm not a no, I just have some hesitance.
I mean, I don't feel like it's necessary to deny at this point, I feel it's just necessary to let them come back, if you wanna go back,
So,
we can work it out.
so we'll table it until they come back with maybe approaching the Germain,
Yeah.
and we get a chance to look at the slope on the road. Are we gonna do that formally or informally? Informally?
I think wait till informally, right?
Formally?
Yeah, if you all want to drive by, it's fine. If we go out there as a board, we have to be careful, or as a commission then, because you're almost holding a private meeting outside of this open meeting, so we have to be careful with the Open Meetings Act that we don't.
I think
run
if
afoul
anybody
of.
wants to see it, you know, John or Darren, I'm sure they would show you that, you know, show you what it looks like.
Right.
All right,
You're certainly
is
willing
that
to drive
okay?
by.
I mean, we're moving on, all right?
Okay,
Thank
just to
you,
make sure, we're gonna
Appreciate it.
table it until they,
Yeah.
explore
If or when they
options
bring a
to
response.
improve the slope, okay.
Okay, moving to the next one, major subdivision.
Let me just write this down. Okay,
Aaron gave me too many papers.
Should we do the wine thing first?
We can switch and do the wine thing if you wanna do that, since Mr. Ohm's waiting.
Aaron, thanks for explaining that. Appreciate it, thanks.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, let's go ahead and just move that forward so we don't keep Mr. Ohm waiting anymore. We've talked about this for several meetings now, about the farm winery. I think we were all maybe trying to explore some language that would satisfy everybody. I don't know that that perfect language is out there, but I gave you all a draft of some language, and I shared that with Mr. Ohm. He felt that that was something that met his original proposal to the Planning Commission. I'll just read this. So, the possible amendment would be to define farm winery, a winery operation conducted on property classified as agricultural by the Maryland Department of Assessment and Taxation. A farm winery may conduct wine tastings that include accessory food sales and have retail sales of wine and wine-related products. At least 2 acres of the ingredients used in the production of beverages must be grown on site. The growing area must be established within 2 years of approval. Must have an approved Maryland Class 3 or 4 winery license. The other requirements would be this would be permitted by special exception in all zoning districts. Of course, this is all just Deep Creek watershed. It would require a 20-acre minimum lot size, have setbacks of 75-foot front, 100-foot side and rear, and that would just be for any structures used for retail or tastings. And then a maximum of 500 square foot of floor area may be devoted to retail sales of wine and winery-related products. Debbie's here. We had tried to reach out to the state a little more about some details about the Class 3 and 4 winery license. We didn't get a lot of response to that. I think, you know, some of those licenses have a lot of different regulations. The one even talks about the food that you would serve and everything. We shouldn't rely too much on those state licenses because they can change. So I think by requiring them to have that approved license, we're basically saying, look, they're complying with state regulations, but we have to understand those regulations can change. So anything that we think is really important, we need to make sure is in the zoning ordinance, because they could get stricter or more lenient at the state. But we're more or less deferring to them and saying, if you have that winery license and you meet these other requirements, you can do it.
So what we have to look at is if we're gonna accept the winery definition in our.
And those other
We can
requirements.
go with this definition, approve it and put it in, and then that way it moves it forward, one yay or nay, one way or another.
Yeah, I
And the
mean,
state licensing issue works too.
if you all want to amend this or add other things, I think this is something that Mr. Ohm is okay with. So I think we owe him a decision, because this is something that he
Right.
says he
You've been very
feels like this
patient,
is,
right.
conforms to his original application. So at the very least, we need to say yes or no to this, and then if you all say no, but we will do it with other requirements, you can do that as well. But at the very least, I think we need to give him an answer. We've
Liz
worked
had
on
a
this.
comment. I think she was fine, right? Liz, George,
Yeah, generally, yes.
somebody made a comment about it. Did somebody make a comment on the language?
I think just in the emails back and forth, but that's not really official. That was just when we sent the agenda out.
I feel like you've addressed everything that came up over the last couple of months, the way you wrote.
I agree.
Okay. I move that we go ahead and, add the farm winery in the regs or whatever you want to say, as is stated in this email that Chad just read.
Second,
I'll second it.
any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? So moved.
Okay, so the county commissioners have the final say in this. So
Right.
what I will do now is put this in a little more formal format, like it would be going into the zoning ordinance, and present to them. Then they have the same option. They can give this a yay or nay, or they could go back and say, we want to change some things too. So, but as you're an advisory group, I will forward it on to them with your recommendation.
Thank you for your patience.
Is that your,
Thank you, I appreciate it. I knew it was gonna take some time.
so is
Adding language is not an easy thing.
that your road, you guys put a road up through is that your road you put through the field? Somebody made a cut on the adjoining property. Is that the?
Oh, no,
That's not you.
that's the guy that bought that.
Oh, really? Okay, all right.
He's putting a house up there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you got nothing out of the state really to work with, huh?
Well, I can tell you that there's a class 3 license and a class 4. Typically, they only go with a class 4 because it has more privileges. Like Chad said, things changed all the time, so when I look back at the Frederick County Economic Development Guide, the hours they used to be, only till 6 PM, and now they're to 10 PM. The current legislation of Senate Bill 1001 changed the definitions, or changed the Maryland grown agricultural product. It used to refer to fruit, it now just refers to agricultural product or cultivated on a farm or vineyard. The background on that was they're looking to add honey or mead, not necessarily a fruit. One of the previous legislative writers serves on Montgomery County's office, and she said that that mead and mead and honey was specific to somebody. So that was one of the big legislative changes this session. And then, and really it allows them to contract out, correct me if I'm wrong, finished. It used to say, the proposed legislation read purchase bulk wine made entirely, but now it's purchase bulk finished wine, now it's bulk wine made entirely Maryland grown agricultural products. So the concept is that the base of the product comes from somewhere else, and then he puts his own twist and label on it. The local liquor board won't be involved at all, so I won't be involved on any level because it's a state manufacturing license and wholesale. So it would allow them to then also sell their product to other individuals who qualify, such as being a licensee, or to the retail consumer. So it does, I told Chad, usually these only get better for the license holder. The privileges keep expanding, and that's a good example of that is how it used to be really limited on what food they could have. And they keep, because I think the history previously in some areas where maybe there's moratoriums was to not allow the competition with a tavern or a restaurant if there's no longer that type of license. We don't have any moratoriums in Garrett County, so it's not really impacting us like it may in Frederick County.
Good question for you, because my understanding is I would need to be working with you. So the reason that I talked about last time, and I think Chad has in there, the class 3 and class 4, the basic distinction is the class 4 does have the more restrictions, with regard to, they say you can only make this, you can serve this kind of food, like in ham sandwich and blah, 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 and some other things. But they have some restrictions about how much product has to come from the state of Maryland when you're making wine, right? Among some other things. And in that class 4 winery license, it allows you to not only taste but also sell at retail that wine that you produce. What happened is, with legislation, I think it was in 2018, they upped the percentage that you had to have from the state of Maryland, so it forced some wineries, they weren't meeting those standards because of a lack of fruit or for whatever reason. And so what they did was, some of them had to go convert from a class 4 to a class 3 with a local license to retail, because the class 3 license from the state does not permit you to sell at retail the wine you produce. It only allows you to, I believe, you can have tastings, very limited tastings at the manufacturing facility, and I think you can give up to like an ounce away for free or something to that effect, but you cannot sell at retail. So my assumption, my understanding was when I looked into it, and maybe I could be wrong about this, there may be a loophole, but my understanding from talking to the other people is that, yeah, they converted from a 4 to a 3 so they could continue manufacturing, but then they had a local license to actually sell the product that they manufacture, because without that, the class 3 doesn't grant you that ability. It's my understanding, and you know about it more than I do probably. Unless you somehow can get like you set up a separate LLC that's a DBO, that's a wholesaler, you somehow, I don't know how that gets confusing. That's my only question about the situation, because I haven't you know, again, I've read about that those wineries did that, but I don't know, like, so for example, if I have a class 3 winery license, and I manufacture wine, and I start selling it, is anybody, I mean, I've gotta be paying taxes to the state, I've gotta pay taxes to the county, how do I, right, that's where that rubber meets the road, so that's, my only question about this is,
Well, just from a quick glance, what I read about the class 3 was it's a production facility. So that's probably tours and tastings
yes,
of the 2-ounce sample, not sit down by a glass and enjoy the area. So I'd have to find that out, because, I mean, we would be the last agency to come to, so if that's the case, then I think you guys would then have to determine if I'm gonna issue a class, either, like I have a B restaurant license or a D tavern, and if the word tavern brings up any concerns of, a tavern to me means alcohol sales exceed food sales. So I don't know if that, I plan to introduce new legislation next year on our class B to break it out a little more, because it's hotel, motel, recreation. If that's something we need to think about, I need to know late summer.
is there a beer and wine, retail beer and wine license?
Yes, I have class D beer and wine.
Okay, like, can you limit those, like, can they, like, how do they, cause, you know, again, I'm trying to stick with the spirit of it, whereas I'm not gonna sell someone else's product, I'm not gonna sell beer, I'm gonna sell wine that either I manufacture on site, or I'm overseeing somebody manufacturing a portion of it somewhere else, right, in the state, or, and so all I wanna do is sell a privately labeled wine, right, by the glass or a bottle. And that's what I read, my assumption was, again, I didn't talk to the person that, these people that did that, but my assumption was they got a license to sell that. So how do you limit that, I guess, right? Like, how would you allow Debbie to give me that license to retail that so that I wouldn't be selling other stuff as well, or somebody else, right?
Well, the only thing we're gonna be able to limit is what's in, you know, what we've written, and then just confirming that you have that license. So above and beyond that, there's not really a whole lot we could do other than what we specifically put in the ordinance.
If you wanted a retail store license, does zoning allow that in that district?
Well, we're allowing 500 square foot of floor area devoted to retail sales of wine and wine-related products. So, as long as you're complying with these things that we, you know, list, I don't know that we would get into much more detail than that.
Or you probably get the retail sales, but you also used to have a liquor license to sell the wine, right?
Yeah, and you normally can't have 2 different licenses on the same property, so that would have to be a conversation with the state. We have like a pub brewery, like the state has a pub brewery, so like brewery and the Beast is a good example. There'll be a production license for the state and then a restaurant license through the local liquor board. So, I mean, if you wanna propose that to me in an email, I could find out a little more, or then we just kind of.
And I think that was part of the, maybe I thought there would be a lot simpler way to do this, but I think we realized Debbie has some regulations on the local level, we have state regulations, and then we have zoning conceptually, and they don't always jive together, there's different regulations, so it was not easy to come up with something, so, yeah.
Well, you and I talked earlier, I mean, the state's gotta hash out what they're gonna do for sure anyway.
How does,
County have to hash out what they're gonna do, right?
how's Chess Yoder sell his winery?
Well, he's not in zoning.
Oh, okay, all right.
So that changes everything. If you're not in zoning, you don't have these strict uses that you're dealing with.
But I guess that's the question, right? So like, if you're not in zoning at all, you would just then issue a class D license and you wouldn't care, right? Like, you just go, you get a class D license at retail, and it doesn't really matter, right?
Do you not have a winery?
No, I'm saying if you had a winery, if you said the same thing, just, you know, again, for me, if you did it right next door to my property, I would just build this thing, and I wouldn't even be involved in this, and I'd come to you and say, can you give me a license to retail wine, right? And that's all I would do.
Yeah, if you're not in zoning, you know, anytime you're in zoning, you've got the big list of all the different uses, restaurant, tavern, manufacturing, everything, and you look to see if it's permitted or not. Outside of zoning, those uses don't matter. Now, there are still other things. If you're opening a restaurant, it may be health department, fire marshal. If you're serving alcohol, we go to Debbie. So there are other regulations, but there's just not this definition and use regulation. That's what really happens in zoning. You have to make sure, is it permitted? Are you allowed to do it in that zone, in residential or commercial zone? So outside of zoning, it gets a lot simpler. Fire marshal, health department, liquor control, you know, those things still apply everywhere, but there's just not a specific yes or no on the use that we break down.
So it seems to me, I don't know how all this works, but either you're gonna say that you issue me a license to sell the wine, and you're somehow okay with that, or you somehow restrict that. Again, I don't know how that licensing works, if it's just, it is the license and people can do whatever it is, or if you can set restrictions, you can say have a license, but you can only do X. I'm not sure if that works that way. Or do you perhaps create a new license that says this is a license to retail wine that goes along with a class 3? Because my assumption, that's what these other counties have had to do. They've either done one of those two things, right? Because they had someone with a class 4 that didn't need a local license to sell their product, but then because of the state regulation, they modified their license and now needed a local. There's articles about it. You can find the articles online. They needed a local license and then retail. So it was like, you know, it's a different, instead of going through the state completely, they went through the state and now the local.
I think zoning plays into it, so that's not my lane.
Mhm.
But if I issued him a store license or we really have a store license or restaurant, they're clearly defined. It
So
sounds like we're in between the.
Store license maybe sounds like more like it, right? Because
A store license is typically to go, you want on premise. You want more than a sample.
yeah.
Well, in this, we've said 500 square foot of floor area can be devoted to retail. So
It doesn't mean you have to necessarily, if you wanted to sell wine, then I think that's gonna be a little bit different than if you're selling, say, cups, glasses,
Well,
associated retail, t-shirts, hats. that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, and I'm thinking too, again, I'm trying to think, because Chad got me thinking this way, like from the first time with like bad actors, right? Like, I don't think you want someone opening up and selling just a bunch of wine like, you know, the Deep Creek Beverage does, right? So I'm trying to be sensitive to that as well, because I don't wanna do that. But I guess it's a question, how do you most easily allow someone to have a winery, right? That's the spirit of wine, which is making wine and selling it, and that's it, on premise. And that's, I guess, and that's where I think the zoning thing is sort of relatively figured out. It's really just how does again, if she gives me a license, and I guess you can only give a license if the zoning, like, if I came to you, you would say, well, you're not zoned for that, is that how it would work? If I came to you without coming to them first?
Our statute reads that zoning rules apply, so you have to meet all their rules before you.
So you know about liquor licenses when
Right.
somebody applies for one?
we try to work together.
Okay, so maybe that's the catch. In this case, then you would allow.
There are different agencies that control liquor license, and there's different, so that's gonna come down to what the county decides they're gonna require you to carry to do your winery. We're gonna give you the guidelines to build your building and get started. They're gonna give you the guidelines of how you're gonna be classified as if you're a liquor store, or you're a retail store, or you're manufacturing. That's where they're gonna have to, that's something that has to be hashed out at some point.
So if I go, so you've approved this now, let's say the county approves it, right? So I build this thing, and then I come knock on Debbie's door and say, all right, Debbie, I've got wine
Give me a
now.
license.
I wanna sell it. I'm assuming I've gone through the special exception, right, to get it approved for everything, then she will contact you, and then you guys will say, okay. And if I hadn't gone through the process, someone else, you'd say, no, I can't, what do you mean, you want a liquor license for that? I mean, is that kind of how it's gonna work?
Yeah, I mean, we're all in the same office, so if somebody.
If that's the case, I'm fine with it, I just wanna make sure it's clear, right, because we put a lot of work in
Just to be,
already.
step one, the permit your building and stuff goes here to Chad's office. Once your building's constructed and they've defined what you are at that point, once we get a definition that we can live with, right?
I guess my question is the idea to solely sell, taste, sample your private label or,
Yes.
because if I gave you a license, it's gonna let you buy from any wholesale.
No, it's gonna be private label, like I've gotta go through the federal process of getting the labels created, all that stuff. That's my whole thing, right, like I'm not doing, I don't wanna sell Gallo wine, to your point, right?
Yeah, my license, I think, would allow that, so I think you guys would need some restriction on it.
And maybe that's where, I think, we sort of talked about this, but maybe that's where you just put something, language in it that says, allows you to sell privately labeled wine or something to that effect. I don't know how you do that. I know we were trying not to get too crazy about it.
Yeah, and at some point, I thought maybe we could find some perfect language for this, and some of it's just, I don't know. You know, I'm not familiar with winery, and there's so many different possibilities that it gets a little overwhelming, so.
Well, I was gonna ask, is this hypothetical, that if you can't grow grapes or get Maryland product, then you need another way to have customers or consume wine?
No, I'm absolutely doing what my prime plan is to be a class 3 initially, just because it's gonna be more cost effective. But I'm gonna private label my wine.
Cost
And
effective on the licensing or on?
no, cost effective on, instead of buying $1.5 million of wine equipment, not knowing how many people are gonna come to the door, I'm going to make use of other places in Maryland and perhaps Virginia to make wine for me. Buy grapes from various places in Maryland and probably in Virginia as well because of the supply. And have them make wine under my private label. They will be actually DVO licensed entities. It will actually be myself, or it will be somebody else making it actually. And so that once I go a couple of years into this and I see that, yeah, I got enough people coming through the door want to drink wine, then I expand my facility and probably will convert to a 4. But I could quite possibly stay at 3 with a local 2 because again, I think that there are less restrictions in terms of the winemaking itself. So, yeah, I mean, I'm gonna have 6 or 7 wines, all with my label on it, and that's all I'm gonna sell. And you can come and taste them, and you're gonna pay for tastings, or you can buy it and you can drink it there, or you can take it with you to go. I mean, just like any typical winery right across Maryland and Virginia.
And that's where I've heard you guys over your meetings, you've visited them, I've never visited one, so that's, not.
Yeah, you go inside, you taste, you pay the taste, and then you can buy some wine, you sit outside or sit inside and drink it, and you can bring your own food, or you can buy a little snack there, and then you can buy a stick to go. So it's either on-site sales and off-site.
And right now, you'd probably be regulated under, if you did that, when you buy food, you'd have to be regulated as a restaurant, wouldn't you?
Health
I mean,
department,
that's
That's the health
we will,
department, yeah, that's the health department. But
yeah, anytime you're,
Right. I mean, as far as getting licensing goes, without the guideline from the state gave you got some rough ideas what the state's doing. And as far as our end goes, what we've done is give you guidelines to build the building and move forward from this, just to stop step 1. As far as, it's like, I'm in a project right now that the county had to define something. It never hadn't been done, so we'd have to define it. So here in this work, we defined a winery as, this is how you can do a winery, right? We just put that into the code book. Now we gotta define how you're gonna license and control this new entity that we have now established in the zoning. And I think between all of us, we're gonna come up with some ideas that are,
well, certainly as
take the state input, the county, like we always do, whether it's a fire marshal or whatever it is, we kind of take it and put it together and.
yeah, as we define these things, we say it's an acceptable use in zoning with a special exception
Right.
hearing. You would still have to follow through, and if you're gonna serve food, you're gonna talk to the health department. If you're gonna have any sort of
Right.
assembly of people, the fire marshal has to approve that. So there's still gonna be other hoops to jump through, just typical ones, fire marshal, health department, those sort of things.
And certainly in this case, you've got the 20 acres, you've got to grow 2 acres of the product, right? So that's, we talked about all these things
Yeah.
to keep people from doing nefarious things, or bad actors, or however you want to call that.
Yeah, I think those are the big thing. It is 20 acres. You're gonna have to grow some stuff. So, I'm always trying to look for the loopholes there, but there are some, I think, again, the acreage and things like that. There are things people are gonna have to do that I don't think you're just gonna have stores popping up all through the watershed, because they have to have these other things in place. It has to be agriculturally assessed land, so that's gonna limit the parcels that can do this. So, and direct it towards that farm winery part.
So again, I'm not trying to muddy the waters, I'm happiest and certainly, right, I wanna get going forward, I just wanna
I
make
mean,
sure
Chad's
that.
right, once you start what we started, that's what you gotta meet your guidelines of your facilities and stuff to get to that point. You've got the health department's gonna come in and say, if you're gonna serve food, you gotta have 3-bowl sink, you gotta have this, you gotta, and whatever type of food service you're gonna have. Fire marshal's gonna come in and say, you got a 500 square foot area, you're gonna be limited to 32 people.
Yeah.
You know, that's something we're not gonna dictate to you, that's gonna be dictated by somebody else. When it comes to how you're gonna be defined as a business, I don't think all we define was what a winery is in the eyes of, in our little world. Define what you are outside of that's gonna have to be done by, you know, we're telling you a winery is this. It's a building, we're saying you can have 500 square foot of retail, you don't have to. You can put a counter in with some tables and pour wine and people can sit there and drink wine. We just go, what's that gonna be called? You know what I mean? I mean, you're gonna have to have a liquor license, I know that at some point, I would think, to sell liquor. I don't know.
Well, yeah, that's the thing, I just gotta make sure that Debbie will be nice enough to give me one, because
Right.
I do all this stuff and then.
Downstate Brewing in the watershed.
I mean, if I go into any place, you know, Honey Bar, wherever it is, and they have a retail, I mean, their business, they have a business license and they have a liquor license, right? That's the way I assume.
Well, I think the difference is the class 4 kind of gives them those privileges on.
Yeah,
Right.
the class 4 is like all in one.
Right.
Make it, produce it, all, they're probably all right there, where the class 3 reads as a establish and operate a plant for fermenting bottling wine in the location described in the license, which I'm taking that means not on your property.
Yeah, it basically, the difference is that the class 4 gives you the retail and the making of it, but the making is incredibly restricted, whereas the class 3 doesn't really restrict the making. You can make it with New York grapes, with Maryland grapes, with whatever, but you can't retail sell it.
And we may end up with, if we can't come to hit, what the state doesn't, we may have to take our own between 3 and 4, make our own thing work. I mean, I don't know, it depends on how you guys want to police it at that point.
We couldn't change that, but maybe the local license can be correct.
That's what I mean, right, that's what I'm talking about, right. Could adapt, right. I mean, I think if you're gonna require, 'cause I know a lot of times we've Garrett and Allegheny County have kind of been different on some of their codes versus the rest of the state. We created our own law or whatever to govern our little county because we don't like what's happening in, say, Washington County.
Sure.
You may have to develop a license for him that is, you know, unique to what his product is and what he's selling, how he's selling. I don't know. You know. That answer everybody's questions, I hope. I hope not. Everybody's more confused than they were, right?
I'm just glad we want to start a new business.
All right, thank you for your patience. Thank you, Debbie, for all your input.
Thank you.
We got,
Yeah, we got a couple subdivisions. So we've got another one from Cathedral Springs. I think we've had one of these every month for, seems about a
6
year.
months,
This is Crows Point Road. They still have a few of these. So this is just another single lot. It conforms to the preliminary plan. The only thing with this one was Public Utilities did not sign it yet. So I talked to them. They said they were okay with this being approved contingent on them taking a closer look at the plat. I think maybe there's a timing thing with them getting to sign it. So if you decide to approve it, it would be contingent on Public Utilities putting their signature on it. And if they have any questions or issues or need something on the plat, I would just defer it back and say you've got to resubmit next month.
we're good with the motion on this?
I'll make it.
Motion second? Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? So moved, Chad.
Okay. I've got another one, North Shore East Lot 21. These are kind of a similar situation. This subdivision actually dates all the way back to 2021, so that's before my time. It's been going on forever. I think this is finally the last lot in that subdivision that they're finally getting ready to record. Similar situation, they didn't get Public Utilities signature on it. I think they were checking to make sure that the sewer line was there. So your approval will be contingent on making sure Public Utilities is okay and they put their signature on the plat.
Motion? I'll make it. Second? Any further discussion? All in favor? All opposed, so moved, Chad.
Okay, and then the last one, this is HR Hunt LLC Commercial Subdivision. This is at the corner of Glendale Road and 219, so this is where they're doing all the work. This would be potentially be a new Dollar General site. You already seen special exception for a possible Royal Farms down here, so they're finally getting this plat. We worked with some of those proposed developers to get their special exception through. Normally the plat gets all approved before anybody else that's a future owner is involved, but we were able to meet with them and explain to them that this is in process and allow them to move forward a little bit, getting some of their special exceptions, but we're finally getting the final plat. Everything looks good. The only thing I don't have for this is the road maintenance documents. I talked to them yesterday. They're working on that, so plat's okay. If you give approval, it would be contingent on them getting the road maintenance documents in. Those have to be prepared, and then county attorney reviews those. So this section of road, Roland Hill, will be actually a private road that will serve those 3 commercial lots. And then, of course, before I would release the plat, they either have to build the road and install water and utility and electrical utilities, or they can provide a bond for that. So I would hold the Mylars before they have that. I think they plan on submitting a bond.
Any concern with this? Motion,
Make a conditional.
I'll make one.
second? Any further discussion? All in favor? All opposed, so moved, Chad.
Okay. I think that's
Next meeting,
it.
July 3rd.
Yep.
Okay. Meeting adjourned. Thank you for your
Alright.
time.
They know what the third parcel is yet, Chad?
What?
They know what the third parcel's for yet? Anyone still for draft?
$1
Let me end this
Royal
meeting.
Farms.
$1 for